Welcome back to the Nupsala Podcast. My name's Harriet. I'm the Operations Manager here at Nupsala Limited. Today I'm joined by Julie from Endometriosis UK and Kelly, one of our team members at MSK Vets. Today we're talking about endometriosis and the Endometriosis Friendly Employer scheme. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. Just want to spend a little bit of time for a minute, Julie, introducing yourself. Kelly, talk through too. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name's Julie Burns, and I'm the Endometriosis Friendly Employer scheme with the national endometriosis charity Endometriosis UK. Thank you for having me.
Hello, I'm Kelly. I am one of the guys down in the MSK Vets Clinic, and I wanted to be on this podcast just to help these guys out with talking about endometriosis and showing my support for the scheme.
Wonderful. Thanks. And thanks everyone for taking the time to listen. So let's start with some questions we're going to go through as possible and feel as comfortable as you can sharing. So my first question is, Julie, can you explain a little bit about what endometriosis is and how it affects 1 in 10 women born female at birth?
Yeah, of course. So endometriosis is a condition where the cells similar to those in the lining of the womb are found elsewhere in the body. Now, most commonly that can be in the pelvis and the uterus, but quite often it can also affect the bowel and the bladder, or even further traveling in different parts of the body, such as the lungs, the chest, the diaphragm, and in some very rare cases, the head and the brain. So usually during a period, the blood leaves the body, but in the case of endometriosis, that can't happen because the cells are outside of the womb, so they've no way of escaping, and therefore it builds up and causes inflammation, pain, and the formation of scar tissue.
Wow, it really is sort of gets everywhere, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. So can you tell me then, you touched briefly there on the pain and the sort of the swelling around that. Do you want to just talk through some early signs and any symptoms people should be aware of?
Yeah, of course. The main symptoms are really around pelvic pain, heavy bleeding, pain either during or after sexual intercourse. It can be really sore when you poo. It can be sore when you pee. It can also create a huge amount of fatigue and lack of energy, and it may cause difficulties trying to conceive. Now, all of that obviously affects an individual's mental health and well-being. I mean, we all know in the community about endobelly. Quite unfortunately, your belly can just swell up, and that can be really, really debilitating as well. The symptoms are quite often mistaken for other conditions like IBS, pelvic inflammatory disease, and that's why diagnosis can take such a long time. However, as Harriet and I have spoken before, and we might have similar journeys and some similar elements of our journey, but not everyone experiences symptoms, and symptoms don't always correlate to the amount of endometriosis. So you might have what we call superficial disease, which is small spots of endometriosis, but these can cause severe symptoms depending on where they are cited. Or you could end up having really deep infiltrating disease, which has been there for a number of years, but you've maybe not had those symptoms, and you've been able to manage your life in a way that's worked for you. We do have this fantastic tool on our website now called the Symptoms Checker. It's basically designed to check common endometriosis symptoms and support. It helps to hopefully improve diagnostic times and access to treatment, because it generates a letter that you can take to your GP. Now, this page on our website is consistently one of the most viewed, so it's a really useful, practical tool to help anyone who may be struggling, but also be having issues with their GP or medical practitioner listening and believing them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. From my own experiences, I used the Endometriosis UK website a lot when I was first diagnosed. The signs and symptoms is a great tool there, and there wasn't, when I was first diagnosed, the actual ability to take a letter to the doctor, which I think improves so many women's born female at birth chance of getting support, which I think is really great. So it's great to know about that. So Kelly, if I bring you into the conversation here, what sort of common misconceptions do you think that we have around endometriosis at all? Like, how did you know about it? What do you know about it within your family life or your friends that you think that we'd like to challenge?
So I think a lot of the issues, like what Julia said, is a lot of GPs don't often believe like females born at birth in regards to pain and issues what they're having. I know that in my own experience with my own like female issues, just trying to get a doctor to believe you half the time, they instead of them just turning around and saying, "Oh, just pop some painkillers," or put a hot water bottle on your stomach, that sort of thing. So I think having that letter just on the website, just to be able to take it to your doctor, is such a massive thing now. And I've got females in my family, one who has suffered in the past as well with endometriosis symptoms, turned out not to be that, but even just for her, getting some form of diagnosis was really difficult for her. So just having that alone on the website, I do think is a fantastic tool to take to your GP.
Yeah, definitely. We also have there's some common misconceptions around endometriosis that Julie's touched on, that one size doesn't fit all here. People can have the same symptoms, but it doesn't mean that they can react in the same way or they can feel the same thing. Obviously, endometriosis is in stages 1 to 4, and everybody who's in a different stage will have different symptoms and different clinical signs between those stages, which I think it's important that we don't put everyone in the same box with endometriosis.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So why do you feel that knowing more about endometriosis is important in the wider community? If I put that to you, Julie, and then Kelly, if we think about it in the veterinary community specifically, if I come to you, Julie, first, why do we think endometriosis is important in the wider community to be known about?
Yeah, there's some really pretty staggering statistics here. Endometriosis costs the UK economy £8.2 billion every year. That's in respect of healthcare costs, treatment, and loss of work. And as we've mentioned, endometriosis affects 1 in 10. That's the same as asthma and diabetes, but still some GPs have limited or no knowledge of it at all. Another stat from research last year, 45% of those interviewed in a report that we undertook from the charity stated that they had to visit their GP 10 or more times with symptoms prior to being diagnosed. The diagnosis times across the UK are horrendous. In England and Scotland, it's taken an average of 8 years and 10 months to be diagnosed. Northern Ireland is 9 years, 5 months, and Wales is 9 years and 11 months. Nearly 10 years for a condition that's as common as asthma and diabetes. I mean, that's a huge amount of medical gaslighting and misogyny around women's health. In fact, there was a really great report published last year by the Women and Equalities Committee of the UK government around medical misogyny. So, if anyone wants to have a chance to read that, it's really fantastic. But just like you say there, it's really vital that we raise more awareness in workplaces across all sectors, not just in the vets community, but you guys, you have great audience there, not just in your staff, but you've got reach with all of your clients who come through the door. So that's why we love to encourage our workplaces to take part in fundraising activities such as, Tea for Endo, bring your colleagues together, bake some cakes, raise a bit of awareness, get the conversation going, or go yellow, ask your colleagues to wear yellow for the day. Not everyone suits yellow. I'm quite lucky with the branded colours. Red's my favourite colour, and I do like yellow with dark hair, so I can kind of rock the staff colours. But it's really good opportunity just to get menstrual health in the workplace discussions going.
Yeah, definitely. And Kelly, what do you think about in the veterinary community, how we're predominantly a female workplace in the veterinary. But we obviously in Nupsala, and in the warehouse, we have a lot of males on our team. So tell me, what do you think about how getting this out there makes a difference?
I think it will make a difference with just the fact, like you said, Harriet, the veterinary industry is a female-dominated staff role, and I think with obviously men, no offense to them, but they don't always know what women go through every month, and not just that, but also if they are struggling with things like endometriosis, polycystic ovaries, anything like that. I think that sometimes that they can struggle to understand because they've not been in that situation themselves, because they can't be in that situation themselves. So just being able to get this information out there, making the males who are working with us more aware that, you know, this can be going on. It's not just, you know, oh, they're in a bit of a mood. Like, there is something definitely going on. I think it's just really important for them to be more aware of this sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. They can also take it home to their partners, their family and friends themselves. It doesn't have to be just exclusive to their workplace. What we learn in work, we can take into our wider life and vice versa. So it's just really important. Yeah.
No, definitely. Great. And if you've got a daughter as well who's coming up to that age where, you know, things, you know, are going, you know, she's coming into puberty, things could happen. And I think with my husband, myself, we've got a little girl. I know he's terrified of when she comes to that age, because it's just like, oh, you know, I've got a little girl. How am I going to help her? How am I going to support her? Luckily, he is very supportive. So, but obviously, yeah, for anyone who's got a daughter out there as well.
Oh, perfect. Lovely. So Julie, can you tell us a little bit about Endometriosis UK and how it supports people with, like myself, like Kelly's family members, with this condition?
Yeah, of course. So really, quite simply, our mission is to have endometriosis recognised and understood, and where that disease does not limit people's lives. So that includes everyone in the UK having the right to appropriate and high quality treatment, regardless of their background, their identity, or just where they happen to live. We also campaign for additional resource to fund research and help to find the cause and hopefully one day a cure, because I'm not sure if we've mentioned this before, but there is no cure at all. And when we talked about misconceptions earlier, Harriet, quite often sufferers are told there's 3 big myths: have a child, have a radical surgery, or just wait till you reach the menopause and you'll be cured. None of these issues are cures. In fact, pregnancy may relieve some symptoms for the 9 months when you don't have a period, but we do also hear from members who say because of where their adhesions are maybe sited as the uterus grows, it can actually be really quite painful. Symptoms may be relieved for some time, but again, everyone's different. What works for one doesn't work for the other. The menopause is definitely not a cure, because although you stop producing estrogen, of which endometriosis relies on to grow, there's still other parts of the body that produce estrogen. It's just in a different form. And while people who are in menopause are taking HRT, that can also still flare up your endometriosis symptoms. And radical surgery, absolutely not recommended for those who wish to preserve fertility. But again, removal of your uterus can cause some relief. But if your surgery is not carried out by a gynecologist who specialises in endometriosis, it may be that some deposits are left behind. So in some cases, individuals will still be experiencing symptoms. So again, that was just those 3 myths. And I'm just going to come back again to, so what we do as a charity is to make sure that our community knows all about the relevant resources and information, to make sure they're armed and able to advocate for themselves. We also do a lot of work campaigning with the governments across the 4 nations and work closely with key stakeholders such as the Royal Colleges, so the Royal College of GPs, the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, NICE, who prepare all the guidelines, and the BSGE, who are the British Society for Gynecological Endoscopy. And I'm always really glad when I can get that out without stuttering. So yeah, we are a growing charity. We have recently appointed staff number 25, which is fantastic. So we are riding a wave of much more awareness and additional funding to allow us to provide all these services. We've got support groups up and down the UK, all run by volunteers with lived experience, and some people prefer to, join our web chats or our helpline. We've got a nurse-led support helpline now, providing medical advice, and we have different webinars, etc., on our page. So yeah, there's a lot of free resource available on our website for anyone who's interested.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think when I first started looking at Endometriosis UK, the web volunteers, the way that you can interact with people with live conditions, or just to give you that friendly support and advice, via the web chat, via the phone, the internet. There's ways of accessing the content in different ways depending on your personality, and I just think that's really fantastic because it just supports so many different types of people, for different types of neurodiversity, if I'm honest. So yeah, I think it's really great. I've always been an advocate of Endometriosis UK. It's one of the first places, I think, when you get told or you suspect that you have endometriosis, it's to go and get the accurate information. You know that what you're going to read is appropriate, it's right, and it's not, like you say, full of myths, tales. It is sort of factually correct, which is really great. So I'm going to move on to the next couple of questions here. So the first one I want to talk about is about here the Endometriosis Friendly Employer scheme. So Julie, would you mind giving us an overview, and then Kelly, if I don't mind coming to you afterwards, talk about personal experience to bring into joining the scheme, if that's okay?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the endometriosis scheme is not an accreditation. Let's just be quite clear about that. It's a pledge. It's a pledge from organisations to help those with endometriosis to thrive in the workplace. So we base it on three main principles. Now they are around leadership and management support, tackling stigma and changing the culture, and communications and raising awareness. So that's what the scheme is built on. Now we have over 150 organisations now up and down the UK. Thanks to you guys, we have a number of vet practices, which is fantastic. There's obviously quite a lot of competitiveness in some sectors, because we joined one of the railways, and suddenly we had 3 or 4 rail operators, which are obviously quite a male-dominated workforce, but we've also a number of police forces, fire services, emergency services, universities, a lot of NHS employers, but also big corporate names we all know, household names such as British Airways, and quite recently our very first hospitality chain, Wagamama, which is fantastic. So yeah, we've also in the last year seen a huge increase in the number of male champions in the organisations, which is just fantastic. So really, the scheme is about making sure everyone in the workplace feels able to have open conversations around how they manage their endometriosis. Now, that might just be something quite simple as, access to a different uniform if you're a frontline worker who has a uniform. A more breathable fabric, or something that's adjustable at the waist to help with the dreaded endobelly. It might mean a slight tweak to your working pattern, or some companies have introduced endometriosis friendly policies in their organizations as well. So again, we are really happy to work with any size and shape of organization in any sector, just to get the word out there.
No, it's really important. And then Kelly, what personal experience do you feel bringing to the scheme helped you to become and want to become an endometriosis champion?
Well, I think it's with the fact I do suffer with women's health issues myself. It's not endometriosis, but also family members. I've got friends who have suffer with endometriosis, and it's just the fact that when they were getting diagnosed or when they were going to GPs, they weren't really getting the help that they needed. And then when Harriet told me about this, about Endometriosis UK, it just made me want to get involved to help get the word out there and support women. I've always been an advocate for women's health. So just being able to be a part of this, help get the word out, it just means a lot to me in that respect.
That's really great. I think this is my second place of employment that I was championing being an endometriosis friendly employer. I think I'd been here about 3 weeks before I contacted Julie and says, I'm going to get it done. So it's obviously super important for me. That's my background and my personal experiences. I think it's really important for any workplace to recognise women's health, to support women's health. I think the initiatives that you can bring in, not just only here, but from a veterinary point of view for the clinic, is that actually when our clients come to visit, they feel it's a safe space. Some of these people may have travelled, sort of 45 minutes to an hour to come to us. They may need a rest break. And actually, we all know that if you are suffering with endometriosis or any form of women's health, things like that can happen whenever it wants. It doesn't give you a warning. So actually, we now have the sanitary items and products, not just specific to women. We've extended our box out to men, but all the things that you might need to have a bit of a refresh moment if you're suffering. And I think it's really an important part of the scheme to be able to give back to that.
100%
to be honest,
agree.
Yeah, and I think just as you mentioned there, Harriet, there's potentially some really emotional moments, and that's stressful, and we know that stressful conditions can exacerbate some symptoms as well. So I think that's really fantastic that you're not only thinking about your staff but also about your clients as well.
Yeah. So then, Kelly, now you've noticed this, because I'm going to ask you, how do you feel that being part of the scheme has changed the team over the past few weeks, month that we've been part of the scheme? How do you think there's been any changes? Do you think the team will uptake it? What do you feel?
I feel that it's definitely been an eye-opener. I think that obviously if there's people who have not had to personally experience that with somebody or themselves, I think you not become ignorant to the whole thing, but just because you're not in the know. And I just feel that now that this has been put out there and the information is out there, I think people are like, oh yeah, this is actually a thing. And I have seen a difference in people acknowledging that over the past few weeks.
Yeah, that's really great. I got some feedback from one of our team members that they went on a trip, and the person that they went on the trip to they went to another country. They started talking about the endometriosis pledges that we'd made to that supplier of ours. So, and actually it was really surprising that came from our male CEO. He started the conversation about what we were doing here. So, to go to a different company and say that, it was just music to my ears. And just to know that you've had an influence on, that side of things for anyone is really great. And like you say, to get the males starting a conversation sometimes is fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
In terms of wider feedback, Harriet, just, a lot of our employers talk about huge improvements in employee well-being, productivity, but also engagement and morale. And becoming an endometriosis friendly employer can also help with recruitment and retention of staff, because say, for example, 2 vet practices are recruiting and one is endometriosis friendly and the other isn't. If that was me, I know which company I would rather work with. And another little powerful quote we received just recently from a company who were renewing for the 3rd year, and I just thought this was really quite powerful. So what they've said, this individual said, is every time I see something about endometriosis in the media, I feel extremely proud that we are doing such great things within our organisation to make a difference, reduce the stigma, and keep the conversation going so that less people have to suffer in silence. And I actually, the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up, just to, as you say, the fact that you yourself have brought this to the company, and this individual just felt the same, that, they're making a difference. So we are hugely grateful to you all for that.
Yeah, I think it's invaluable, really. You can't put any feeling on it. Like you say, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. It's a very powerful quote. You could almost like mic drop after that moment, really, can't you?
Yeah. It's going to be
Wonderful.
on some of our future marketing products.
I can imagine, yeah.
No, I think it's also just helps with the fact that, it doesn't have to be a taboo subject to talk about either. It should be openly spoken about. And I think just Endometriosis UK is such an amazing tool to have to stop that taboo word of, oh no, I can't talk about this, when no, we should be talking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's just one final thing I wanted to sort of talk about, is about the supportive conversations that lead after we've joined the scheme, or before, or in the future. One of the ones that I've been involved with is a colleague here. Their daughter has been diagnosed, and she didn't really know how to approach the subject with her daughter. So we were talking about it, role playing the conversation out. And actually, we're using the Endometriosis UK Guides book, which is the Expert's Guide to Treat, Manage and Live Well with Your Symptoms book. We're using that, which we got with our Endometriosis Friendly Employer scheme. She's going to take this home and actually share the open conversation with her daughter. So it's not just right, let me sit down and let's talk about this. Like, look, take this book away to read, like, know how you'll feel about it and come back to me if you have questions. And I think that's really great to know that we can encourage other people to be open and not put any stigma on it, like you're saying, Kelly. I think it's really important for that. So I just want to bring in here if you've had any other supportive conversations, or Julie, do you have any top tips about how we can engage people in those supportive conversations as champions?
Yeah, as you know, Harriet, all our champions are trained by us. So again, we don't restrict the number of champions per organisation. It might be, we can give you a rough guide depending on your numbers as to how many champions we think you should have, but we appreciate that every sector and every workplace is very different. But it's really just about this different culture. Coming from the leadership down is really powerful too. Those lived experience examples opens up the conversation. So just what you've done today in recording this podcast to go out to the workforce, that will start people talking. As they have already, as Kelly mentioned. But again, there's some simple things that you can do as a manager. If you feel that there's maybe a pattern to absences, and we know that symptoms are not always cyclical, and they can be very sporadic depending on your treatment, and then your treatment can cause different symptoms as well, including chemical menopause, which is, we could write a whole other podcast on that. That's a whole other chapter. But something like that, if you feel it could be a menstrual health situation, and we understand that it's challenging for males to talk about, but one individual was really uncomfortable talking to her male manager in an organisation, and they were able to just tweak her line management so that she reported to a female. It was just a simple reporting structure. It was not a big deal. Another person was just recently diagnosed, didn't want to talk to her, quite frankly, middle-aged misogynist boss. But however, she got diagnosed, and then and at the end of the day, she sent him an email to say, I've just been diagnosed with this. This is how it's going to affect me in the workplace. And here's the link to the Endometriosis UK website. I would like you to learn a bit more about it. And she's had amazing support from him. So it's just being brave. And I know it's vulnerability there as well, but it's just being brave to have that conversation, because if you feel supported at work, you feel more valued, and you're always going to be loyal, and feel like you're going to want to give everything back to your organization. So it doesn't always work, don't get me wrong. There are organizations that are massive, that have really challenging absence management protocols that they have to follow through. A lot of the public sector policies are, they're written in stone. They have to adhere to 3 absences, and then you're either referred to occupational health, or you're up on a kind of disciplinary or an absence management process. But again, all of these tools can actually help you, particularly a referral to occupational health, because they will then make recommendations to allow you to remain working and to help you. Now, that could be with all those different tweaks that we talked about earlier in terms of uniforms or shift patterns, etc. So yeah, there's lots of different wee things that can just make a huge amount of difference to someone who does suffer.
Perfect. And Kelly, do you think being part of the scheme and being a champion has changed the way in which you would approach any conversations, or feel you can share any top tips of how you've spoken to your family since we've been part of the scheme?
It's definitely given me a new perspective, and when I am talking to family members now who are suffering, I just feel that I can understand more on a different scale than I did before. Obviously, you kind of you understand. Yes, I know you're suffering, or you're in pain, or something's going on. But now, learning more about it, I'm yes, I just have got a new perspective on it all.
Yeah, the empathy feels different when you know a little bit more, doesn't it?
Definitely.
You can put yourselves in their shoes a little bit. Yeah, it's really, really positive. Well, I'll just sort of finish off the podcast now. And is there anything else, Julie, that you wanted to mention or bring up today?
No, really, just to say again, if I could just encourage anyone who's watching that is interested in the scheme, please reach out either on our website, or to myself directly, or on the web page. But just if you learn anything from the session, go home and tell someone in your household or your family group, and just spread that wee bit more awareness, because 1 in 10 women and those assigned female at birth are suffering from this condition. It's really debilitating. It affects all aspects of your life. But if you feel supported in the workplace, then that's just a really good place to start. So yeah, and we just really appreciate all of your support, Harriet, personally and professionally. And yeah, Kelly, thank you so much for being brave and coming on and sharing your support too.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kelly. Thank you. It's great to have another person's viewpoint and conversation, and just how it's adapted and changed the way that you can help and support your own family members. That's what we always want for anybody really, especially within endometriosis for today's topic. So I'd just like to say thank you very much to everyone that's listening, watching. Endometriosis is an extremely important topic for myself in a personal space, and I am always an advocate of getting it spoken about within the workplace. Endometriosis UK has helped me from start to, I can't say finished because my journey is never finished with endometriosis, but knowing that you have employers and employees that you work with behind you, it makes a huge difference to your support network. So I would encourage anyone that's listening, if you're not a member of the scheme, speak to your team, speak to your line manager, speak to your business, and get joined. It's just the small things that you can do that make a big difference. So yeah, and thanks everyone for listening.